So hopefully everyone can see that. In terms of our agenda today, Sarah's going to give an update regarding training and our plans for the coming term. And then Anna is going to go over the new qualification structure, and then also give an update on our new new e-assessment platform. And then I'm going to give you some other updates on some just some other items of business before we'll go to questions and answers. So questions you can either put in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, and then we can just unmute yourself and ask your question that way. So without further ado, Sarah.
Thank you. There we are. Switch my camera on. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. It's really good to see such large numbers of people, even if I can't see you via the webcams. But as David says, please do put any questions or comments in the chat box, or as we encourage our students to do, please do feel free to put your hand up and ask your question in the kind of old-fashioned way with your mic on. For those of you who haven't joined an employer forum before and haven't therefore kind of met me virtually, I manage all of our CETC provision, so all the delivery of our qualifications and apprenticeships, and I've been doing that for just over a year now, but I've been at CIPFA for a bit longer. So just wanted to give you an update on what we have been doing within CETC and some of our plans as well, and hopefully to engage you with a little bit of kind of request for feedback so that we can be building that into our future provision and making sure that what we deliver meets both yours and your students' needs. So David, if we can start with the first slide, please. The first thing that I wanted to do was update you on a recent fairly intense week of my life that I've spent, because we deliver apprenticeships that involve the use of the government's apprenticeship levy funding. This brings us in scope of Ofsted and their inspections regime. Now, whilst I'm sure that no one especially relishes the prospect of inspection by 8 inspectors who descend for the week, the inspection process is welcome in that it's an extremely rigorous and thorough validation of what we do, and so their judgment or their grading is a robust validation of the quality of our provision. So we were really delighted to have been graded as a good provider. This was our first full inspection, and it's not always the case that first full inspections will result in a good grading. That the one underneath this requires improvement, and that's quite normal for first full inspections. But we were really delighted to be graded as good. It was also, I should say, amongst the first inspections by Ofsted of level 7 provision, and particularly one of the first, but not the first, of the level 7 accounting apprenticeship provision, because Ofsted only took over responsibility for inspecting level 7 provision from April of 2021. I just wanted to sort of highlight to you both the fact that we have been validated as a good provider, because I think obviously that's good for you to know, and particularly if you've got sort of tender requirements and such like for placing apprenticeships with providers. Good to know that we are officially good. But I did want to particularly highlight the positive feedback that we got both in the report, but also in terms of verbal feedback. One of the particular strengths that the inspectors were recognising in CETC was the strength of the tripartite arrangements between CIPFA as training provider, the student and the employer. And there were lots and lots of really positive comments and feedback about the employer's role in the success of the programme. So in very many ways, this Ofsted good grading is as much as a success for you as it is for us. So thank you very much. The inspectors were extremely complimentary about the employer involvement in the programme of study, both in relation to the support that you provide to students along the way, but also the opportunities that you give them to ensure that they gain the breadth of experience required. And they highlighted and commented on the very many examples. One of the inspectors actually said there were too many examples to even mention in the feedback of where they saw students progressing in their roles, taking on new responsibilities, gaining promotions. Lots and lots of good examples of employers, you know, doing giving training opportunities to apprentices and students over and above the kind of core programme requirements. So that was absolutely a really strong feature of our inspection. So thank you very much for the part that you play in that. Another thing I just wanted to point out was that they were particularly, you know, the thing that I suppose sets us apart from other providers, this is what they were saying to us, is the calibre of our trainers and work-based learning coaches. They commented particularly on the benefits that students receive from working with coaches and trainers who have extensive experience of working in senior finance positions in public sector organisations. And so students get to benefit from all of that via the advice, support and guidance. So I won't go over the quotes on this slide because I'm sure you can read them, but you know, there were lots and lots of strengths that they highlighted, but a lot of those were, as I say, down to the role that the employer plays within the programme. The full report is available on both the Ofsted website and the CIPFA website. Absolutely feel free to go and have a look and download. We will also be putting that on the on an email after this webinar, so that you can just click and go and do that if you need to. Next slide, please, David. So this is just a sort of high-level overview of where we are in relation to how we teach and what's within the programme. So you'll all obviously be aware that from March 2020, we moved everything, all classes online. Certainly the Ofsted inspectors picked up and commented positively on the fact that there was no break in learning, kind of moved overnight to putting all the classes online. But we do recognise the challenges inherent in online learning versus face-to-face. So we did, in September of 2020, introduce tutorials for some modules. They were very well received. And so February 2021, we rolled out tutorials across all modules. I can confirm that they're here to stay. We've just received an update on the feedback given to us by students at the end of term via a survey that we send out. Lots and lots of very positive comments about tutorials. So those are small groups and they're definitely here to stay. We would ask if you could support us by encouraging your students to turn on their mics and their cameras if possible during those tutorials. They are small groups. They are intended to replicate the feeling of being in a room together and a classroom. And we're keen to get good interactivity and participation going. There still is a little bit of a reluctance to turn on mics and cameras. So we would just encourage you to encourage your students to engage fully, and I think they will get a better experience as a result. As an aside, we are moving to Zoom this term away from GoToTraining, and that will allow us some kind of richer features to enable more participation and interactivity in both the web classes and the tutorials. In relation to kind of face-to-face, from September 2021, we did reintroduce some elements of face-to-face learning. So we put on introductory days and revision days for some modules in the programme. And from this term, spring 2022, those options will be available for all modules. So I should stress that they are optional. Students will still have the choice of attending face-to-face or online, but we are continuing with that hybrid model for spring 21. And we are actively considering what autumn 22 looks like, but obviously we're still in uncertain territory in relation to the pandemic. And we're just really very keen today, particularly, but on ongoing as well, to talk to and engage opinion from as many students and employers as possible about how they want to engage with learning. We do have many students and employers telling us that they really appreciate the flexibility of online learning, which is great. But alongside that, unsurprisingly, we do have strong voices calling for the return of face-to-face. So we're very mindful of trying to get the balance right, and put on modes of study that suit as many of our students and employers as possible. We do have an interesting disconnect, I would say, between stated strong desire to get back to face-to-face, and then action in terms of actually booking and turning up for face-to-face courses. Completely understand that we're in a very kind of dynamic environment at the moment. People might say they'd like to get back to face-to-face, but then maybe they come down with COVID or a colleague or government guidelines change, etc. So completely recognise that. But we did end up cancelling quite a few of our face-to-face courses last term, because whilst we were hearing a strong desire to get back to face-to-face, people actually didn't book for the courses. So there's a kind of interesting disconnect there, and just really keen, we are going to continue to offer them, but just keen to understand whether you as employers let your students choose whether they how they engage with the training, whether you are strongly encouraging them to engage online to get the benefits of flexibility, or whether you are strongly encouraging them to attend face-to-face to get the other benefits of you know, the networking, the social learning with other students, and actually seeing their trainers and it being a bit easier to ask their questions, etc. So if you don't mind using the chat box, or we'll kind of give a few minutes of pause at the end of this and allow you to switch your mics on and speak. But it would be really interesting to know your thoughts and those that you know about of your students in relation to the way that they want to engage with learning in that kind of face-to-face versus online versus hybrid models. So that would be great to know. And as I say, if I could encourage you to use the chat or speak up in a moment, that would be absolutely brilliant and very welcome. The final thing I just wanted to say was just another bit of a plea, really. Can you encourage your students to join and actively participate in the CIPFA student network? Have a very active network of CIPFA students who will put on events relevant to students, networking opportunities and support. So we believe it's a really valuable student member benefit, and definitely encourage you to encourage and turn your students to engage with that network. We've got Alison Sweeting here, who's our training delivery manager, who's very close to the student networks, and also Anna, head of qualifications and membership, so they can take questions in the chat if you have any about that network. But yeah, certainly would like to encourage you to in turn encourage your students to engage with that network.
So there's a couple of questions in the chat box, so thank you for. So Judith, hi Judith, by the way, from Newcastle, just saying that so they have 4 students have just taken the first 2 modules and would like the option of face-to-face. Yeah. And then Catherine Long, hi Catherine. So also Catherine is a very good person to speak to about the work of the student network and the CIPFA regions as president. So if anyone has any questions,
I'm glad I said that
then Catherine is your is a person to speak to. She's an expert.
Yeah, just say hello everyone. Hi. Yeah, so yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions on student stuff as well. But yeah, I'm South East Regional President.
Yeah, and it's just a good opportunity for them to get involved, you know, particularly when things are online as well, and just to build that network. But the regions and the student network in particular is just really, really good things. Whether it's just to, you know, just to be able to talk to fellow students, but actually some really good topics around, you know, studying. And I think you've even, Catherine, had, is it a pizza and study, a session for the case study in preparation for the case study? Like
yeah, that's always a very popular one. I think I remember when we started that years and years ago. Obviously, that was when I was a student, I was doing case studies. So I thought we're trying to encourage everyone to come in and socialise a bit. I don't know, people might just be there for the pizza rather than learning about case study. I don't know.
And so, Catherine, just whilst you're on the, did you want to just go over your question or comment in the chat box?
I just made a comment earlier on about the trying to get students to engage and telling them to turn their cameras on, because when I did ask all of our Essex students to do that, they said they were trying to do that in large classes. That just didn't really work. Like, yeah, the screens were freezing, and delays in people talking coming through it, so it wasn't great. So I think people were turning cameras off for that reason, which made it difficult to engage. But yeah, I know moving to Zoom might make that different. I think that the go-to software might have been a bit of the issue there. I don't know. But so they were trying to. I did encourage them to do it, but they said it wasn't really working as planned. And the other comment I was going to make was about the attending face-to-face classes. So I'd say with our students, we've got quite a few, but they're probably about half of them are very keen to be face-to-face and really miss it. So other the new ones, or people who were face-to-face previously, are very keen to come in, but the other half are definitely very much want to stay virtual. And they've obviously all got different life circumstances. Some have young children, some have lived further away, so coming into London is difficult. So but yeah, it's about half and half for us. We as an employer don't have a particular preference. We'll support whatever works for the student.
No, thanks, Catherine, and that is really useful. And this is where, Phil, if we can make the hybrid model work, where we are giving students the opportunity to meet the people on their cohort at the kind of front end of the module, and engage in some of that kind of networking activity, and build some kind of relationships with people on their program as a whole, but particularly obviously for that term on their module, and then get them back in the classroom for face-to-face revision. Hopefully that will, certainly in the short to medium term, be enough for those students. But we're absolutely not saying that we're never getting back to full face-to-face. It's just that there are obviously so many uncertainties as we, kind of say it quietly, hopefully are moving out of the pandemic, but things can change so quickly, as we know, with variants. It makes timetabling incredibly difficult. So we're absolutely doing what we can to make sure that we've got an offer that suits everyone's kind of preferred styles. But it is challenging, no doubt about it. And thanks for the comment on Zoom and the cameras. Yeah, absolutely. If you've got a lot of people in a class and all the cameras are on, it can cause some kind of bandwidth challenges. Certainly for tutorials where you've got less than 10 people in a class, there shouldn't be issues with freezing screens, etc. Hopefully, if that was the case, that might have been a go-to training issue, which will be overcome with Zoom, but we'll keep a close eye on that.
So yeah, just a couple of comments from specifically from Judith and Julie about face-to-face options in Newcastle. So that's perhaps something, I don't want to comment on it now, Sarah or Alison, or just something for us to look at again. It is also just worth just noting that we also do have some challenges around resourcing as well, but to just noting the comments about returning to face-to-face, when and
absolutely noted, thank you.
Yeah, just a comment from Tabitha. Hi Tabitha, by the way. And we will come back to your questions about when we get on to CIPFA Futures, about the phasing of exams as well, Tabitha. So Tabitha's just saying about commenting about their apprentices weren't able to sign up for the face-to-face revision sessions that we ran last term because they were already fully booked.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, Tabitha. I'll be honest with you. This is a learning process. It's the first time that we've done it. We're in kind of unprecedented circumstances. We put on these options. For some, there was very little take up. For some, there was a huge amount. We can take the data from that to hopefully make a better experience in future terms. So I'm sorry that your students weren't able to attend, but you're absolutely right. We could and should be looking at things like waiting lists. So if someone drops out, we can then offer people the opportunity to attend. But ideally, we would obviously be in a position where we could offer everybody who wants to attend a face-to-face a place at that course. But obviously the challenge with face-to-face is that we are literally limited to chairs and desks in a classroom. But as I say, the more that we do it, the more data we'll get about the popular courses for face-to-face, or where the kind of numbers are coming through with modules, so that we can be adequately resourcing enough enough trainers to be offering face-to-face courses so that everyone gets an opportunity to attend.
Okay, so there's just yeah, some really good comments in the chat box. I won't go over or attempt to answer all of them, but around face-to-face and how different employers allow students to have choice, and how they book on the face-to-face, which Alison, thank you. I think you've answered that one. So thank you. We will obviously go over these questions as well, and perhaps put some answers in the follow-up as well. But thank you for all of those as well. Again, and Nick talking about some support from Newcastle and just general support for more face-to-face for students. Okay, shall we move on? Just conscious of time, but we'll come back to questions when we have time at the end as well. So thank you, and do keep the questions coming as well, and also support for the student network, which is really good as well. So Sarah, key dates.
Key dates, yes, thank you. Okay, so this is just a very quick overview. I'm not going to read this out, but you can see that we are actively taking applications now for all of the apprenticeship qualifications that we offer. So level 7, kind of the AAT embedded level 4 and 3, and also our counter fraud investigator apprenticeship. So you can see the application deadlines there. We're nearly there with the level 7 program, and as you can see, delivery for spring term will commence in March and April. You'll get copies of these slides, so I don't think I need to say any more unless anyone's got any queries.
Okay, so thanks, Sarah. Thanks for that update, and so do keep the questions coming on as well. So I'm now just going to kind of introduce Anna Howard, who's our head of qualifications, just to go back over our progress. I know we've covered it before, but obviously it's an important change to the new professional accountancy qualification that we are launching this year. Anna.
Yeah, thanks, David. Thanks for joining, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Anna Howard. I am the head of qualifications and membership. So I look after the professional accountancy qualification, the exams and assessments, and then also the progression of students through to membership and all of the membership benefits that sit within that. As hopefully you're all aware, we have a new professional accountancy qualification that we are launching in March for the new course delivery of this year. We're rolling this qualification out, so we're not going big bang with it. So we are transitioning students to the new qualification. So those that enroll for the March courses this year that aren't exempt from MA and FA will be on the new qualification. The existing students that are on the existing PQ and IPFM qualifications will remain on those, but we're putting a lot of work around what we can do to make sure that those students aren't disadvantaged, and making sure that everybody's clearly communicated to in regards to the transitional arrangements. So if we can move to the next slide, please, David. This is what our new qualification looks like. So what we have here is we have, and it will look reasonably familiar to the existing qualification, we will have a CIPFA certificate in management and financial accounting. Once students have completed that, we will then have the CIPFA diploma in financial management and audit. Where we have a slight change and introduction of a new module is in the CIPFA diploma in governance, risk and taxation. And then we have 3 streams. Now, all of this has now been mapped to the apprenticeship standard. So currently the apprenticeship students, for example, weren't eligible to do the audit, advanced audit module within the apprenticeship qualification. We've rectified that now within the work that we've been doing with the new qualification. So what we'll have is we will have 2 main options for a majority of students, which will be the CIPFA diploma in public financial management reporting and advanced audit, and the CIPFA diploma in public financial management reporting and business change. Now, for that advanced audit qualification, students, that qualification is mapped to the Local Audit and Accountability Act, and students would be needing to be working for an approved employer. So we'll be communicating over the coming weeks around how you become an approved training employer. If you are interested in that particular stream for your students, please do let us know, and then we can start working with you on how what that process looks like. Majority of students would be on the CIPFA diploma in public financial management reporting and business change. There are all of the modules and the qualification listed within our website, and there's some links for you to look at after this and once we've been through, but you'll be able to see that a majority of the modules across those two diplomas, the advanced audit and business change, are the same. So there's one module difference between those two, where either they're specialising in that advanced audit or the business change. Another development is we've been working with the NHS around a particular stream for those students working in the NHS that would like to undertake a qualification, predominantly apprenticeships around public financial management reporting and NHS. We've got NHS / Mary Seacole there. The NHS have a Mary Seacole qualification that we have embedded within our qualification for students, because currently that is an additional requirement for students working within the NHS to do an apprenticeship. So what we've done is we've embedded that qualification within our own. We'll then also be looking at what we can do in terms of other streams at that more strategic level, where we can potentially look to work with employers or sectors to add additional sectoral modules within that part of the qualification. If we can move on to the next slide, David. You'll see here the current qualification and the new, and the fact that there is significant overlap and significant transition between the two. So you'll notice there that there is a prerequisite online module for ethics that we'll be encouraging students to undertake. That's our free online ethics module for those students to do as they're enrolling on their programs or as they start undertaking those first initial modules. Where a module has been mapped from an existing module on the current PQ to a new module, that would demonstrate at least 80% of content coverage. So you can see there that there's quite a lot of content that is the same as our existing qualification. Obviously, by the time you build a qualification and the modules and map it to the accounting standards, meet the regulatory requirements, there will be quite a lot of overlap, but there are some interesting and new changes. So we've got a governance and risk management module on the new qualification. That is quite significant and a change to the existing qualification. And also we've now combined taxation and corporate governance and law into a tax and law module. That is significant because students will need to pass both of those modules. If they don't pass both of them by the deadline dates, they would need to undertake that tax and law module in its entirety. So there would be a slight overlap there in terms of learning, but you can see most of the other modules map across quite nicely. This is the programme running. So this is now publicly available to everybody. So you can see there when the final term dates are and the final exam dates are, and then when the teaching starts for the new qualification and the first exam dates. The management accounting and financial accounting students, we have communicated with them once already in regards to those last exam dates. The December exam results go out on Friday for my sins. So as soon as they've gone out, we will then be communicating to any student that have not been successful in those two modules to advise them that the last exam date on the current format will be March. And if they're then unsuccessful, they would need to transition to the new modules. So that's what that looks like. If we move on to the next slide. These are just a couple of links that you are able to access. So there is quite a lot of information on the website currently around transitional information, around the new qualification. All of those dates, etc., are on the existing are on the website. There is a document as well. So a question that's come in via email prior to the meeting is around transitional arrangements and the differences. There is a document on those links that you'll be able to access, which shows the differences between the two qualifications for you. And another question in regards to transition around previous exams, mocks, etc. There will be pilot papers for students, and all of the practice question banks, etc. will be developed for the new qualifications, so students won't be disadvantaged in regards to previous exams and materials for the new qualification. If I just open up the chat, or David, do you want to manage the chat function and the questions that have come in on that?
Yes, I will. So yeah, couple of questions. So Julie, I hope that answered your question as well, but I might just put something in the email. I know Julie had another question about the online application form, and we've asked our colleague Louise, who's our apprenticeship manager, just to come back to you about the Adobe form. So, so will students, this is a question from Kirsten. Hi, Kirsten. Will students in September 22 intake with exemptions be taking the new or older syllabus?
So it would depend on what they're exempted from. So if they're exempted from management accounting and financial accounting, by that stage, they would be still on. So for the March intake, if they are exempted from MA and FA, they would be on the old qualification. But by September 22, those modules will be running. So if they're exempted from MA and FA, they would be on the new syllabus. If they're exempted from some of the latter modules, then they could potentially be on the old syllabus. But on the understanding that most students are exempted from the earlier papers rather than the later papers, they would more likely be on the new qualification and the new syllabus.
Yeah, thank you. So question from Judith. We have 4 members of staff. We've just started up the old qualification, or existing qualification, in September. So September 21. Is there contingency room for their qualification route if something happens and they need to take a pause? So Judith, the short answer to that is yes. Obviously, what we will be doing, what our apprenticeship team will be doing, is looking at the learning plans for all of the apprentices, and then managing their plan on an individual basis. So if they do need to take a break in learning for whatever reason, we'll manage their plan accordingly, and they'll have the opportunity, if it's not to take some of the existing modules, then they will be able to take some of the new modules as appropriate. So, but we will be managing their plans individually, and so we will be going out to quite a few students actually that started with us in autumn, so effectively the last set of students doing the old program without exemptions, and just telling them about the implication of the new program, and actually if necessary just changing some of the modules they study so that they have an opportunity to also resit if required as well. So we will be actively managing them. And obviously students that aren't apprentices, that are doing the commercial students, Anna's team, Anna's program management team will also be looking after them and making sure that all students are aware of the last available dates of the existing exams, and then obviously when they'll have to then what the implications are, and if they need to move across to some of the new modules. So question from Katie, is there a reason why the SPD deadline is earlier than most of the others at this level?
So the replacement for that module is developing strategy and data analysis, and that's a module that we've introduced a case study to. So we've introduced a case study to that module because we feel that the strategic case study exam, we're not preparing students for that as well as we could be, because they've not experienced an assessment like that. So the developing strategy and data analysis module, which is a replacement for SPD, will introduce a case study. The SPD module, every student for all modules will get at least a first sit and resit opportunity for those modules. So based on the delivery and the delivery of courses, all students will get at least a first sit and resit opportunity for those exams. We will also be monitoring exams and exam pass rates very, very closely. And if we feel that there is a rationale for running additional exam for students where, for example, SPD, the assessment is changing significantly, we would look at that and look at putting on additional opportunities depending on the number of students affected. Obviously, what we need to do is draw a line somewhere, and obviously we need to ensure that as we're running the programme out in terms of course delivery, that we've got start and end points for all of those modules, but we will be monitoring that and looking at it very carefully as the modules roll out and as we progress through.
Thanks, Anna. I think the other thing to say as well, so individually, so if for example, individual apprentices have a query about their learning plan or concerned, they should go to apprenticeships at cipfa.org, and they'll talk to them individually about their plan. If you as an employer want to talk about the progress of your students as a group and want to talk about them as a group, then get in touch with me. I'll put again my details in the chat box, or my colleague Victoria, or the apprenticeship inbox, so you can talk to us as they go through. So I think students have started with us as apprentices in August 21. We will be going out to them over the next couple of months to talk about their learning plan, and if necessary make any adjustments to it. So I think just the idea is obviously we'll keep in touch with the dialogue with your students and also with you, but any concerns or queries you want to raise, just get in touch and we can talk about the individual students in more detail. So Julie, hi Julie, by the way, can you advise on this week's exam results? Good pass rates. Good question, Julie. Good question. Let's put Anna on the spot.
It is an absolutely fantastic question, but I cannot answer it, unfortunately.
Good try, Julie, by the way.
Yeah, no, sorry, I need to obviously maintain confidentiality between exam panel and the results release. So I'm unable to answer that question, and we'll take the Fifth Amendment.
I promise, Anna, I didn't set Julie up to ask that question.
No, absolutely fine. I'd love to be able to answer it, but I just can't.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, but good one. Well done, Julie. Right. Okay. So shall we move on? And again, if anyone wants their exam results for their students, again, just let us know, and we'll be able to send them to you as an employer after they come out on Friday. The new exams platform, Anna.
Yes. So because rewriting the qualification didn't keep me busy enough and realigning all the membership categories to it, we are also introducing a new e-assessment platform for our students. So the current e-assessment platform and proctoring service, as some of you are well aware, has had its issues and problems. So we've been looking at ways in which we can improve this service. The main functionality that we've been looking at is around how we can assess students and looking at additional functionality for students to improve their exam experiences, as well as obviously around the invigilation processes and the reliability of the platform. So the new platform that we're looking at will have inbuilt functionality for things like spreadsheets, etc., so that we're not expecting students to sit there with calculators adding up lists of figures. They can use the functionality in a spreadsheet, so it's more replicative of the workplace. The introduction of different question types for students, so rather than just the bog standard multiple choice questions where you select A, B, C or D, which are actually very difficult for students because there's no subjectivity in that. They're obviously clearly right or wrong. We've introduced other question types where students will be able to drag and drop and match definitions together and things like that, and that'll be rolling out for management accounting and financial accounting. So if we could move on to the next slide. This introduction of the new platform really does align with our learning strategy and our transformation program and what we can do to ensure our customer journey really through from students to membership and improve student experiences. It's key to us that we do improve our student experience, so this is why we want to invest in this and look at ways in which we can assess students in a less stressful way, but also assess them in a more work-based environment in terms of functionality, and with a platform to reduce to increase the reliability. So obviously there are different things that we're looking at the moment, and it really is about improving that learning experience for our students and for our members. So we've been through quite a comprehensive procurement process and tendering process, and we have awarded a contract to Eintech and their Rogo system to be able to transition from the current platform to the new platform. What we're looking at doing is we're looking at a number of options in terms of that transition, and looking at the potential for the June exams for management accounting and financial accounting to be sat on the new platform, and then roll out the platform to the other examinations at a later date. But we're just going through a lot of testing at the moment. And this, if we could move on to the next slide, please, is where we're really looking for your help. So we are looking to carry out obviously quite substantive user acceptance testing on a number of the different functionalities within the platform, and we've listed these out for you in the next couple of slides. all the things from, you can see here, booking and paying for courses, how they cancel courses, taking those practice tests, viewing multiple choice questions and feedback, etc., the results when we release them. If we move on to the next slide, similarly with the exam bookings rather than the practice test, how we book and pay, cancel, schedule, sit, specimen tests, invigilators, how invigilators work, sitting the exam, and really just getting feedback from everybody. So what we're asking for is anybody that would like to volunteer. The next slide is also where we're looking at the project report and the user acceptance testing there that we're doing. So what we're really doing is looking for anybody that would like to volunteer, if they're students really, to be involved in this, to go through some of this testing and to feed back to us on how that's gone. So by all means pop details in the chat, which would be great. And also there's email addresses at the end of this that you can contact us on, and those details will be passed across, and we will look at selecting different groupings to pull together to be able to look at that testing. Judith, yes, there will be plenty of practice questions in the new style. So we've already written about 120 questions for both MA and FA for the new platform and for the new question types for students to be able to practice on. And we'll be doing that for all modules, and looking at our operating model as well in regards to rolling out past papers to students, which currently we don't do. But I'm looking to change that process so that we can roll out past papers to students, so that there's even more practice as we progress through the delivery of the qualification. And thank you for volunteering.
Yeah, so anyone that wants to volunteer, just obviously just put your name in the chat box, or when we send a follow-up to this, you can just reply by email. But it's the more we can test in terms of on the user acceptance testing, and it's testing different work systems as well as the actual our system as well. So that would be gratefully received. Okay. I'm conscious I'm going to just go over the last few bits that I've got, and then we can come back to questions and any other questions that you have for Anna afterwards. So just a couple other things I wanted to pick up. You may have already seen as a press release or as a member, you may have already seen a release that went out to say that CIPFA are working more closely with ICAEW. So at this stage, it was really just to let you know, in case you hadn't seen it anywhere else. So I think the best example of this I heard was from a colleague who said that we're now formally dating. And so in terms of what that might look like, it works with the dating analogy that we have formally started dating. Where that ends up, if that ends up in a marriage, we don't know. But what we will do is we'll keep you informed, and certainly, if there's a direct communication that will go out to members and stakeholders, but we'll also keep you informed via this forum in terms of any updates. So certainly, by the time of our next forum, I expect to have an update in terms of the progress and hopefully what that might look like. So really it was just an opportunity to say to you that we are formally dating with ICAEW, and we'll see where that takes us. In terms of just one more quick update, and then we'll go to questions. Access Accountancy. So I don't know if how many of you are aware of Access Accountancy, but it was as a charity that was set up I think back in 2014, and it's something that CIPFA is involved in, and really it's about they're about improving social inclusion and diversity within the accountancy community. So CIPFA are involved, as are all of the accountancy professional bodies. And so rather than spending a lot of time on this now, what I'm going to do is, with the follow-up to this meeting, I'm going to send you like a little information pack on Access Accountancy, and obviously if you can reply to that to say if you're interested in getting involved, then we'd very much like to support the work of Access Accountancy, and they do a range of different activities. I've put their website address on the slide, accessaccountancy.org. It's worth just having a look at that, but I say I'll send a little introductory pack with a follow-up email as well, as the sort of things they do. They offer a lot of advice to organisations in terms of helping improve organisations' social inclusion. They also do a separate exercise on data collection, so obviously they can monitor where those figures are at. And actually, this is where the background to them setting up was that I think it was a government report found that the biggest decline in social mobility occurred in the professions of journalism and accountancy. So it was really supporting their efforts in improving that. And so they have lots of different discussion forum groups and meetings, and one of the biggest parts of the work they do is supporting employers in offering work experience and recruitment advice. So that's worth checking out on their website, but I'll send some further details about it as well. And then final thing that I wanted to bring up before we just open up to questions was the PQ Awards. So this is run by PQ Magazine that I'm sure lots of your students subscribe to, and you may still as well. So we're very happy to support people with this, but you're able to make a direct nomination to PQ Magazine for any of the categories. We've put some of the categories there, some of the main ones, and I think there's a nomination form, and it kind of basically is 250 words. So if you've got you want to support or nominate a student, so they've got a student, they've got a category for part qualified student, or for newly qualified, or anything else that you would like to make a nomination for, then please go to PQ Magazine and fill in a nomination form. I say it just requires a 250 word submission, and nominations close on the 18th of February. And again, if anyone needs any support or advice regarding that, then please let us know. So we just encourage you to make a nomination. Okay, so I'm kind of just going to open up now to questions that anyone has. So again, you can either unmute yourself. I think you should be able to just unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can pop it in the chat box. So really just over to you, any question you want to ask us around the qualification and our tuition. So there's a question that's come in from Liz. Thanks for your feedback, Liz. And one of your students having difficulty in getting in touch with student support about her registration. Liz, if you want to email me her details, we'll get back to them. So it's david.fields@cipfa.org. If you just want to email her details, then I'll get back to her personally. Thanks, Julie. So a question from Olga. Thanks, Olga. Are students explicitly taught spreadsheet best practice as they are by ICAW? So it might be worth just first of all, in terms of the examination. So Anna, did you want to perhaps just talk about what the plans are for sort of the use of spreadsheets under the new exam structure?
Yeah, so what it will be is that it will be basic spreadsheet functionality within there. We won't be expecting to do charts and graphs and all those sorts of things. But what it is where we're asking students to do, net present value calculations, or where we're asking them to do, income statements and statement of financial position, that they've got the functionality to use a spreadsheet to do that, rather than a Word document table and then add up all of the figures on a calculation, because there will be that basic functionality there for them. So that's what we will be doing. In regards to the rollout, we've got management accounting and financial accounting, which is starting, which are multiple choice and objective questions. So we haven't had the conversations yet about how students will be supported in regards to best practice, but we are looking into it.
Thanks, Anna. So I think also, Olga, to just answer your question, I know certainly it's definitely taught as part of our AAT tuition, but I don't think it is explicitly taught currently. as part of the tuition for our current classes, but obviously that's set to change.
If I was going to say, David, if I can just jump in here, is that obviously with the new syllabus there is more focus on data analysis within the syllabus as a whole, and we're actively looking at, you know, kind of how we the talk content within the new syllabus. So that will be definitely part of our kind of considerations for new syllabus content in the bits that deal with data analysis. The other option that we have alongside the kind of core teaching content is what we make available to students alongside. So particularly things like e-learning content that we make, e-learning products, for example, that we make available to students to engage within alongside, but as separate to the kind of formally taught tuition, so they can be doing that flexibly. So that's definitely something that we're actively looking into. At the moment, there is a piece of e-learning that is it's not very expensive, and it's half price for students. So I think it's like £30 rather than 60. But I'm actively looking at how we can make that freely available to students, because I think I assume what your question is coming from the same thing that I'm thinking, that it is a skill that we need to explicitly cover in some way.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Olga. So Kirsten's asked a couple of questions. First one is, how much time will we expect a level 7 apprentice to spend on the qualification a week above the 20% off the job? Okay, I'll have a stab at answering that, but Sarah or Helen or any of my colleagues could feel free to jump in as well. So I would have said that probably the same amount of time again, as a rough rule, but it really does depend on what they're studying, what their background in that particular subject is. But there's certainly, you know, no one became a qualified accountant without, you know, spending a significant amount of their own time on self-study in addition to the class time. So I would say, as a rule of thumb, probably the same time again, but it really does depend.
Yeah, so David, if I might chip in there, I wonder if when you say the same time again, you mean the same time as the tuition time again.
Yes,
whereas I think Kirsten's specifically asking about the 20% off the job training and how much over and above the 20% off the job training. And so the answer to that is probably subtly different, in the sense that in theory, all of the time that a really able student needed to spend getting ready for the exams could be within the 20% training, except that to end up with a really well-rounded apprentice, actually there are lots and lots of other things that could be inside their 20% off the job training, stuff that they are doing at work anyway, and that might be internal training courses, it might be rotations, it might be shadowing more experienced members of staff, it might be going back and looking at guidance and legislation. It won't just be their college tuition. So Kirsten, it's a really difficult question to answer, because it depends how much other activity they are recording as part of their 20% off the job training, which could mean that they're meeting that at work on activities that don't amount to exam revision for their tuition courses. But I would definitely agree with David that no apprentice should be expecting not to have to do some revision outside work time, because they want to end up getting all sorts of breadths of experience from within their daytime job, and actually accessing those sometimes in preference to doing revision inside work time and doing that at other times. Hopefully that helps. Shout if that wasn't clear.
Yeah, is often the question a student will ask is, you know, how much time do I need to spend?
Yeah.
It is a difficult question to.
And we tell them really clearly. So in their commitment statement, it does break down where the 20% off the job training might come from. And we show their tuition hours. We show an estimate of the amount of time that they might spend on revision and self-study in addition to that. But we do also highlight really clearly to them in the initial assessment calls, in the first webinar that I do with them, and in their handbook, that lots of other things contribute 20% off the job training, and they should also be expecting to do study and revision in their own time as well.
So Kirsten's other question, thanks Helen. So Kirsten's other question was, what's the main differences between the apprenticeship and the commercial option? So in Right, so the simple answer to that is the apprenticeship means you can fund the cost of the training via your apprenticeship levy. There are some other differences in terms of, obviously, if you're studying it commercial route, you're just studying the qualification, and then the student has to do their practical experience portfolio after or in addition to the qualification. With the apprenticeship, it's part of the support that we give, and we have a coach that supports them and has a regular meeting with them, but also the work experience is part of the programs. That's a big part of the apprenticeship program. So I guess they I think probably the main differences between the two, the cost and that the work experience is included as part of the apprenticeship, and obviously they're monitored and supported.
I might highlight a third difference if I could, David, actually as well, which is that if you're undertaking an apprenticeship and it's using the ESFA levy funding pot, then there are conditions associated with that. And one of those is that the ESFA require us to have a learning plan, an individual learning plan for each apprentice, which maps out when they will be doing each element of their tuition. And it's really important that we plan that carefully from the beginning, and to be eligible for the funding, then that individual learning plan must be achievable, and it must be signed up to by all three parties, the apprentice, the employer, and us as the training provider. So whereas if you're a commercial student, you can make sort of later ad hoc decisions about when you might study individual modules. You can play around with the order and the timing of those modules more independently. You can still change those things on an apprenticeship, but you do need to change them formally in your commitment statement and rewrite the individual learning plan, rephase when your endpoint assessment date will be. So the advice that we always give to the apprentices is, if in doubt, or not even if in doubt, always contact the apprenticeship team at apprenticeships@cipfa.org. That's going to become even more important with the advent of the new syllabus, because we are doing lots of work within the apprenticeship team to make sure that those individual learning plans always give people the opportunity to sit an exam with at least one, preferably two where we can possibly manage it, resit opportunities for the modules on the existing syllabus. That requires forward planning of the individual learning plan. It requires us to think about the later modules and how they will be phased out of the old syllabus at all as well. So the team have put lots of time and effort into training on the understanding between the old and the new syllabus and the phasing. They'll give really good advice on how you want to order your modules to make that work successfully. So the advice to the apprentices always is, let them help you to work out what your ILP ought to look like, but do remember that you need to change it formally.
Okay, thanks, Helen. So, and Kirsten, just finally, obviously, if you wanted to go over that in a bit more detail, we can speak to you separately.